It is perhaps cosmic justice that Sam Smith and Kim Petras performed their satanic ritual at the Grammys, and though they did succeed in getting some of the attention they crave, still most of the conversation surrounding their performance has been focused not on the performance, but on Madonna's face. The aging former pop star introduced the two men on Sunday night, and ever since then, people have been remarking on the fact that Madonna looked like she was having a potentially fatal reaction to shellfish. She looked like Marilyn Manson reimagined as a Muppet. She looked like she paid $15 to a caricature artist to draw a picture of her and then brought the drawing to her plastic surgeon and said, "Turn me into this." And I'm not being mean here. Now, I'm just trying to be precise in my description. It's important to be very precise. And it's not my fault that Madonna now looks like a large flightless bird that went extinct in the Pleistocene era. You can't blame me for the fact that Madonna looks like a sock puppet. She just does. Now, Madonna herself seems to have noticed the comments and the comparisons and the fact that people are saying that she looks like a ventriloquist dummy from a Jeff Dunham act. And so she sent out this tweet on Tuesday. She said, "The world is threatened by my power and my stamina, my intelligence and my will to survive, but they will never break me. This is all a test." She's right, actually. Speaking for myself, I am blown away by her will to survive. I mean, she has a net worth of only $850 million after all. I don't know how she manages to endure, to keep going, to survive against the odds. But she does. She wills her way through it with sheer guts and determination and copious amounts of Botox. It is inspiring. Inspiring, at least, to the New York Times. So while everyone else has been making fun of Madonna, the New York Times has swooped in to explain why we should actually admire her for destroying her face with plastic surgery. In an essay titled "Madonna's New Face is a Brilliant Provocation," the author Jennifer Weiner writes, quote, "With blonde braids looped over her ears, dressed in a long black skirt and black jacket accessorized with a riding crop, one of the best female recording artists of all time stepped into the spotlight of the 65th annual Grammy Awards Sunday night. Madonna was there to introduce Sam Smith and Kim Petras, a non-binary performer and a trans woman. She began by referring to her 4 decades in the music industry and praised the rebels, forging a new path and taking the heat for all of it." Was anyone listening? Social media's loudest roars weren't about her speech or her longtime LGBTQ advocacy or her upcoming world tour. They were about Madonna's preternaturally smooth and extravagantly sculpted face. All of Madonna's features looked exaggerated, pushed, and polished to an extreme. There was her forehead, smooth and gleaming as a porcelain bowl, her eyebrows bleached and plucked to near invisibility, her cheekbones with deep hollows beneath them. People posted with a picture side by side with that of Jigsaw from Saws and Janice from The Muppet Show and made jokes about desperately seeking surgeon, while extremely online plastic surgeons hastened to guess about exactly what procedure she had undergone. Well, there's that. And now comes the part where the leftist writer does what leftist writers love to do more than anything, which is to try to make simple vanity seem interesting. She continues, "Beyond the question of what she'd done, however, lay the more interesting question of why she had done it. Did Madonna get sucked so deep into the vortex of beauty culture that she came out the other side? Had the pressure to appear younger somehow made her think that she ought to look like some kind of excessively contoured baby? Perhaps so, but I'd like to think that our era's greatest chameleon, a woman who has always been intentional about her reinvention, was doing something slyer, more subversive, by serving us both a new, if not necessarily improved, face and a side of critique about the work of beauty, the inevitability of aging, and the impossible bind in which older female celebrities find themselves. People complain that she no longer looks like Madonna, but which Madonna comes to mind? She's been a blonde and a brunette, butch and high femme. She's worn cast-offs and couture. She's adopted and abandoned an English accent. She's shown us her roots and her underwear, deliberately putting the hidden parts on display. Every new version of Madonna was both a look and a commentary on looking, a statement about the artifice of beauty and about her own right to set the terms by which she was seen. Is it possible that Madonna has been so blinkered by her fame and wealth that she's lost the ability to see herself objectively? Yes, but whatever her intentions, the superstar has gotten us all talking about how good looks are subjective and how ageism is pervasive. In the end, whether she meant to make a statement or just to look younger, better, refreshed, almost doesn't matter. If beauty is a construct, Madonna's the one who puts its scaffolding on display. Okay, first of all, no. That's not what's going on here. 2 points. As for beauty being a construct and subjective, Madonna's face is actually a perfect example demonstrating why that is not the case. Despite the extremely common misperception, beauty is not merely in the eye of the beholder. There is an objective quality to it. See, everyone agrees that Madonna's artificial face is not beautiful. Everyone agrees that all of the injections and surgeries and plastics have not improved anything. Women, everyone knows that a woman who ages naturally and gracefully is more beautiful than one who obsessively goes under the knife in a desperate and futile attempt to reverse the clock. Why do we all feel that way? Is it entirely arbitrary? Have we settled on this view randomly? Do we all happen to have the same artificially constructive, subjective opinion about beauty? No. In fact, we recognize, even if we don't realize we recognize, the objective qualities of beauty. We know, even if we don't know that we know, that beauty is wholeness, completeness. Beauty is found in order, in symmetry. Something is beautiful if it reflects its own essence, and if that essence is good. That's why a beautiful tree is one that has grown tall and mighty, not one that is rotting and diseased and covered with graffiti. Thomas Aquinas said that beauty consists in due proportion. And I think this is basically what he's getting at. Madonna's fake face isn't beautiful. We all see that it isn't beautiful because it's a rejection of what is natural and true. It is a reflection not of her humanness and her humanity and her womanhood, but of her vanity and her self-obsessions and her insecurity. There's nothing beautiful about that, and so there's nothing beautiful about her face. Truly, the idea that beauty is subjective, it probably stands alone as the one viewpoint that nearly everyone professes, and yet no one really believes. So you think that beauty is subjective, but you don't really believe that. And I know that you don't believe it because here's how I know it. And I don't know anything about you, whoever you are listening to this. But what I do know is that you would be appalled if somebody were to look out upon a snow-capped mountain range or a lake glistening in the sunset, or someone looked at a Rembrandt painting, or who heard a very talented choir singing Amazing Grace. And if that person recoiled and said, "Ew, gross, this is disgusting." Now, you would be appalled by someone who reacted that way. You would think that they were insane. You would not say, "Well, beauty's in the eye of the beholder." I mean, that's a perfectly valid reaction. You wouldn't. Now, people may resonate differently with these sights and sounds. Some may be more moved than others, but no sane person is actively repulsed by any of those things. Nobody outside the walls of an insane asylum experiences actual revulsion at a sunset. These are timeless and universal beauties. We're told that each culture reinvents beauty for itself, and yet what we actually find is that all through history and across time, in fact, every culture arrives at strikingly similar conclusions about what is beautiful. Now, there may be cultures that have difficulty creating beautiful things, our culture, for instance, and cultures who intentionally create ugly things instead of beautiful, again, ours. But everybody knows what is beautiful. Nobody would prefer a bathroom stall splattered with urine stains over the Sistine Chapel. Nobody would, because one is grotesque and filthy, the other is beautiful. And we can all see that. Final point, women like Madonna who refuse to age gracefully are not victims of ageism, except perhaps the ageism they direct against themselves. Really, they're a reflection of a culture that fears mortality. Okay? We worship death because we worship youth because we are afraid of death. This is like, if you want to call it, it's deathism, I guess. And it really is as simple as that. That's why we worship youth, because we're afraid of death. Now, you may think that both of these things, worshiping youth and being afraid of death, are inevitable in every society, but you're wrong. Because traditionally, especially in more ancient times, the elders in a community have been revered and respected. Age was associated with wisdom. It wasn't shameful to be seen as old, but rather there was honor and dignity that came with being of advanced age. Yet these were also societies that accepted the reality of death. Death was a part of life for them. They were around it all the time. They may have had different ways of understanding death, different ideas about what happened after you died, but they didn't hide from death itself. Not nearly to the extent that we do today, anyway. These days, it's considered rude to even ask somebody their age. Somehow the fact that you've been walking the earth for more than 20 years is supposed to be embarrassing. But why should it be? Why should a 65-year-old woman be embarrassed that she's 65? Well, for no other reason than the fact that 65-year-old women are likely closer to death than 25-year-old women. And we see age as proximity to death, and death is the one thing we don't want to be reminded of. And so that's why we reject the aging process entirely. Indeed, much of modern society is, I'm convinced, fundamentally set up to distract us from thinking about our own deaths. But death is inevitable, whether we think about it or not. And Madonna is 64 years old, whether she embraces that reality or not. So she might as well embrace it. There's no shame in being whatever age you are. There is only shame in being ashamed of it. And that's why, ultimately, Madonna is today canceled. And that'll do it for this portion of the show as we move over to the members block. Hope to see you there. If not, talk to you on Friday. Godspeed.